right, so we will start our next session. I think we have all our attendees coming and joining in already. So welcome back everybody to Remote Workforce Summit, and we're going to start our next session. Well, our next session topic would be remote leadership, leading effectively without face-to-face interaction. And our speaker for today would be Mr. Peter Baker. Let me give you a short introduction for Mr. Peter. He is a group CHRO for First Abu Dhabi Bank in the UAE. Mr. Peter has 25 years of experience in the human resources, sales and marketing roles at Procter & Gamble and Corsic Group. And before joining FAB, he served as a CHRO for Damco. And he has a vast experience across Asia Pacific, USA, and EMEA, which is the Middle East, Europe, and Africa, having lived in Singapore, Netherlands, and Denmark. So thank you so much, Mr. Peter. It's an honor having you coming and speaking on such a relevant topic. It's so important. You know, everybody's looking forward to have this conversation with you all. Well, before we begin, I just wanted to inform that by end of this session, I would request anybody having any questions, Mr. Peter will answer by end of the session, definitely. So Mr. Peter, you may please start. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Varsha, and thank you for inviting me along. I'm delighted to be part of this topic. It is an intriguing time in the world, and of course that presents some intriguing challenges for us in terms of leadership, and that's what I'd like to speak a little bit about today. Varsha, hopefully if you could share the screen for the participants for the presentation so that they can see it. But what of course happened over the last couple of months is as institutions moved from primarily office-based work to primarily working from home, many things changed. And I want to talk a little bit about what's different, but also what's the same in terms of remote leadership. First and foremost, what we saw is that folks who were leaders who were leading by let's call it some of the more traditional management techniques of task monitoring, of close inspection, of involvement in individual decisions, of course, were extremely challenged when all of a sudden their workforce went from being present in the office to being working from home. You know, as we all know, you can't be as close physically to your people when they're working at home. And so for folks who relied upon that kind of inspection mindset of leadership, they really struggled. And they had to, we very quickly had to adapt to a new style and a new approach. Varsha, if you're sharing the slides, if you could now go to the FAB case study. I'll talk a little bit about, which is on the third page. In January, in FAB, First Abu Dhabi Bank, we had no employees working from home. All work was done in the office, and our operating model, our rhythm was all around the traditional face-to-face meetings. People showing up from 8 in the morning until 5:30 at night. And I think, Varsha, we're getting some requests. If you could please share the slides on the screen for everyone, please, that would be great. I think we're, so we had 100% of employees working from the office. All of a sudden the pandemic came and we immediately had to move to work from home. So as of today and from March onwards, only 10% of our office-based employees are working in the office. So 90% of our people are now finding a way to work productively from home. And I think it's an amazing testament to the resilience of our population. And at the same time, this is an amazing opportunity for us to create a new reality and a new culture. So if we go to the fourth page, which is really around, what did we learn? If we move to the top there, Varsha, that says leadership strategy. I want to talk a little bit about this. What did we learn? We learned that in a remote leadership setting, it brought out the best of our best, but also the worst of our worst. frankly, our best leaders were able to thrive, and our less capable leaders really struggled with to adapt to a new way of working. When we first moved to work from home, one of my favourite cases came up that we started getting requests from managers to say, can you please arrange to send me the report for my team so that I know exactly when they log on and how many breaks they take and what time they log off every day. Is that possible? And I said, yes, it is possible, but we're not going to do it. We don't want managers just trying to apply the same traditional management techniques in a new setting. So we actually have deliberately not been sending the kind of activity logs out to managers. Of course they are available, but we really have not been using them. Because what we want to make sure is that leaders actually focus on bringing out the best in their teams during this time. So what have we learned? Our best leaders focused really on setting the right context and explaining the why, rather than getting involved in the individual decisions. So it is really important that managers are able to give more context during in a remote setting, because people don't have that kind of natural congregation of being in the office that they would normally get. So it's really important that managers spend even more time explaining the rationale, explaining the context, and particularly during this crisis period, that's been key. Our best managers are focusing on measuring outcomes rather than activities. And I think you've probably seen it, I've certainly seen it, right? The day feels different when you're working remotely. For folks who are working from home, it almost feels like perhaps you're almost on 24 hours a day doing work, but you're just doing it in a very different way. But that's why it's important as managers that we focus not on the activities and the tasks of our people, but focus on the outcomes that they're delivering. But also importantly, what our best leaders have been able to do is to stay connected to their people. So, we normally, in an office environment, you can wander around the office, you can see people at the coffee machine and draw some sense of connection. Obviously, that's much harder to do in a remote context. And so our best leaders have actually made time for that. They've made time to reach out certainly to their own people, but also to other folks within the organisation in order to maintain those connections. So it does require more deliberate action, and our best leaders have been able to do it. Frankly, our less capable leaders, and I think this is not just in FAB, but certainly across the region and probably across the globe, people who try to translate their traditional leadership techniques into the virtual world really struggled. Because if they were just focusing on things like attendance and inspecting the daily tasks, they were not going to be able to do that in an effective way, and they're not going to be able to bring out the best in our team. Additionally, our less capable leaders struggle to connect with their people in the different ways that are required. And so that's why, what we've tried to adapt here at First Abu Dhabi Bank is we use Microsoft Teams rather than Zoom and use the video element of that, but at least creating some kind of face-to-face connection with your teams is a way of ensuring that we are driving the discretionary effort that we need. Which really brings me to the point of when we think about the difference between remote work and office-based work, in my view, it requires discretionary effort from the employee, because they're not inspected every day. So the employee has to decide, yes, I'm going to absolutely give my best work today. Yes, I'm absolutely going to drive and focus on the critical tasks and be as productive as I can. That is a conscious decision that each employee needs to take, because they're not being punished if they don't swipe their swipe card at 8 a.m. And so what we then say is, what is different then in remote leadership? And so if we go then, Varsha, please, to the last slide, which talks about what are the requirements? What brings out discretionary effort in our people? And this is relevant for whether you're in the office or whether you're at home. This is relevant for you in your personal life as well as at work. In order for a human being to put discretionary effort into their task, it comes down to these three primary motivations of autonomy, of mastery, and of purpose. And our best leaders have been able to think about how to create the conditions so that their people feel that they have autonomy, mastery, and purpose each day. I'll cover them each a little bit briefly. Autonomy really comes down to, do people feel that they are in control of their own work and able to make the key decisions that they are best enabled to make? So again, in a remote setting, it has often required us and enabled us to actually push more autonomy into the organisation in order to ensure that people that people are able to take fast decisions without the need for significant number of meetings and significant number of sign-offs. Mastery, people will put in extra discretionary effort if they feel every day they're getting better at their job. And if they feel that they've got the skills to be successful in their current job and prepared for what's next. So that's why, for us in First Abu Dhabi Bank, of course, we've had to cancel all of our face-to-face training activities, but it has enabled us to move most of our training to all of our learning to online so that people still feel that they're growing and developing. And so that is really important that people come and have a sense every day that they're growing in their role. I know you read a lot of memes of social media to say that this pandemic feels like the movie Groundhog Day, where every day is the same. I do love that movie, but it does trouble me, that analogy. If everyone feels that working from home every single day is just the same and the same, because that's going to become a problem. If people feel that they're not growing and developing in their role, then there's a likelihood that they won't be putting the discretionary effort in that they need. And then finally, purpose. This is really important, that people can feel part of a winning team and connect their work to the larger strategy and the larger purpose of the institution. And frankly, this is the biggest challenge in terms of remote leadership. It's perhaps, in my view, the most critical element of ensuring that our leaders are able to connect the activity of their employees to the purpose of the larger institution that they work for. If managers can do that, then they're going to create the conditions that every single day their people are coming to work and giving the discretionary effort that is needed. If our managers are not able to do that, then you're going to start seeing a drop-off in discretionary effort, which will then drive a drop-off in productivity, a drop-off in results, a drop-off in effectiveness, and that's when you start having the clamours of, let's get everybody back to the office because we're not achieving our productivity targets. So, I do look forward to the day that we get back to the office. I miss my colleagues. I look forward to seeing people face to face, and I think that will be great. But in the meantime, our plan in First Abu Dhabi Bank is to keep people working from home at least for the foreseeable future, and so that requires our leaders to really be mindful of these elements here around discretionary effort. Of how do they every day think of themselves? How do I lead in a way that maximizes the autonomy of my people, maximizes their mastery so that they're growing every day, and maximizes their purpose so that they can find a connection between their own work and the larger strategy? If our leaders are able to do that, then we'll have an engaged and a super productive workforce, whether they're working from home or working from the office. So that is... that's really the primary areas that I wanted to cover. I'm happy to now I see if there's some questions on the slides. Happy to answer any questions at this point and talk more specifically. I think we've still got about 4 or 5 minutes left. So any questions, thoughts, comments from the participants, also around how you guys have seen this remote working experience?
Well, I think you've answered most of the
Yeah.
questions, and I feel nobody's asking any questions, so I feel it was an excellent session that we had. But to all the attendees, anybody having questions, you actually don't get to see Mr. Peter all the time, so anybody having any kind of questions, you can definitely ask him. We still have time, so I request all the attendees to please, if anybody having any relevant question, he's open to answer. I think this was an excellent session, so thank you so much, sir.
Sure, that's fine. So, I mean, look, if people don't have questions, I'm happy. Let me cover a couple of other a couple of other elements here, if you don't mind. I think the other,
yes, of course.
The concept of trust is a really important concept. And if you think, and this is, I think it builds on to the idea of managers wanting to inspect and have that that more traditional management technique of knowing what is the attendance in the office, how many times do my people taking breaks. Making that switch has actually been in many ways one of the hardest things for us, some of our leaders. And what we've been able to do is to try to reinforce the fact that, frankly, we have to have people trust their employees and hold them accountable for the results. So a huge driver of trust is that concept of personal intimacy. And what that still means is that our managers need to get to know their people on a more human way. Because what we will know is you will trust a human being if you know them a little bit better. And again, what we continue to see is our great managers are able to find ways to really know the motivation, the needs, the drivers, the traits of each of their employees, and so they're able to bring out the best in them. In a remote setting, if you've already got that foundation of trust, you're really well set. If you don't have that and you try to build it during a remote setting, it's really hard. But we've had some new managers join and some new employees join during this pandemic, and they've had to spend extra time really on Microsoft Teams, on the video, trying to form that personal connection. Because it really is that personal connection leads to trust, and that trust leads into significant discretionary effort from employees. So I continue to come down to this concept of discretionary effort, because it is so key. When you're not inspecting what your people are doing every single day, then frankly, you need to create the conditions that that people are getting up and deciding every day, yep, today I'm going to absolutely give my best. There's a question on the line about, how did we guide our worst managers to become better? And frankly, a big part of it is, two elements. First of all is building belief, and secondly is building capability, right? And I think I'm going to say we have not cracked the code on that yet. But firstly, building belief is simply around changing the manager's mindset that they must lead in a different way. And frankly, taking some of the traditional tools away from them, such as, no, we're not going to send you the call logs of when your employees log on, has helped some of our employees think differently about how they lead their teams. So even just creating those conditions for that conversation, I think has helped us. But clearly, there's more work to do on training and on capability building to make sure that our less capable line managers are equipped with the tools to be able to manage their teams effectively. So I think we're now up against...
I actually wanted to tell you that there is one more very important and relevant questions that we are getting, which is, Ms. Komal is asking, in this challenging times when IT advanced technology is must, but with almost no revenue, is it a good decision to invest or wait for business to run and then start investing? So I think this is one of a good question. Probably you can answer that.
Yeah, look, every business has its own budgeting challenges, and we certainly do as well. We have found, we had to very quickly invest in technology and Zoom Teams licenses and laptops and other things that we previously didn't have. We have found that the return on investment for that is very high because we've been able to keep the bank running productively from a remote setting. So, I mean, like any decision, it really comes down to the ROI and the payback. You know, but what we've found is a very quick ROI on the tools that allow people to work remotely. So, for example, even on basics, most of our people had desktops, but very quickly we were able to move most of our people onto laptops, or using other ways of giving people access to their data from home, and that has enabled them to work productively. So for us, it certainly has been a high ROI investment, so I'm pleased that we did it. But I know other institutions, of course, might take a different view. It really always comes down to what is the return on investment for that particular choice. Cool. So I think we're up against the 20-minute mark. So thank you very much, everybody, for dialing in. It's been a pleasure for me to
thank you so much.
Think about this topic.
It's an honor. It was always a dream to interact with you at some point. So thank you so much. It was an honor again, having you speaking and asking and probably answering most of the important questions. So it was an amazing session. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So yes, we are ending our session, but before we end our session, I would basically like to thank our sponsors. That would be Automation Anywhere, Nutanix, Blue Prism, Oracle, TeamViewer, Poly, ForcePoint, Tata Communications, Software AG, and Mindware RSA for showing massive trust in our capabilities. So thank you so much to all the attendees participating and taking out time and listening to Mr. Peter. Well, I would request that we're going to have a short coffee break. We're going to start our next session at 11:50. So I request all the attendees to come log in at 11:50. We have managing remote workers. The topmost questions on everyone's mind. We have Mr. Ruben Sprugit. He's going to speak about this topic in detail. So I look forward to see all the attendees at 11:50. Thank you so much. I hope all of us are doing well. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you.